In 1963, the U.S. Navy was running a training exercise off the coast of Puerto Rico when one of their submarines broke formation to pursue something. Whatever it was moving at over 150 knots underwater, nearly 4 times faster than any submarine that we've ever built, and it dove to depths that would crush any known vessel. The pursuit was abandoned. The Navy just logged it and said nothing about it. The same area of ocean, the Puerto Rico Trench, has been generating reports like that for 60 years. Objects entering and exiting the water at speeds that make no sense. Military personnel who won't go on record. A classified inventory of objects in the ocean floor that a Navy chief scientist described in his memoirs as predating any capability to retrieve them. But what makes the Puerto Rico Trench different from anywhere else in the Atlantic? The USGS has its own answer to that question, and it has nothing to do with USOs. The Puerto Rico Trench is the most negative gravity anomaly on Earth, minus 380 milligals, whose origin the USGS describes as presently unknown and indicating what they call a dynamic disequilibrium within the Earth. Something about the mass distribution in that specific location defies what the surrounding geology would predict. No geology explanation has been accepted for this, and it's been an open question since the surveys began. A civilization running geothermal energy infrastructure at depth in that location would produce exactly the kind of mass and energy anomaly that the USGS has been measuring for a long time without being able to explain. And 12,000 years ago, this area wasn't ocean at all. In its place was a landmass, hills, rivers, valleys, forests, wetlands, beaches, roughly a quarter the size of Europe. Thousands of people organized in different groups with different ways of living, hunting and fishing across a landscape that stretched from what is now Britain's east coast all the way to the Netherlands, Germany, and Denmark. We call it Doggerland, and it sank, and this happened over centuries as the ice sheets melted and sea levels rose. And then around 6150 BC, a massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway called the Storegga Slides sent a tsunami across the region that drowned the remaining lowlands. The last remnants of Doggerland were gone. Everything those people built, everything they left behind, is still sitting on the floor of the North Sea right now. Fishermen have been pulling up ancient bones and stone tools in their nets for a long time. The University of Warwick published research this year using ancient DNA from seafloor sediments that reconstructed Doggerland's ecology in detail. Oak, elm, hazel, temperate woodland going back 16,000 years with evidence of human presence throughout. And Doggerland is just one example. At the peak of the last ice age, the sea level was 400 feet lower than it is today. Every continental shelf on Earth was exposed land. The Persian Gulf was almost entirely dry. A land bridge connected Asia to North America across what is now the Bering Sea. Southeast Asia was a vast connected landmass. The coastlines of Australia, Africa, and the Americas extended far into what is now open ocean. Most of the world's ancient coastlines, the places where populations concentrated because coastlines provide the richest food sources and easiest travel, are now underwater. Most of the record of our human prehistory is now submerged. That's from the Smithsonian, which I don't fully trust, but it changes what you think about how long humans have been here and what they may have built. When the sea level was 400 feet lower, civilizations that developed along those coastlines would have built where the resources were. Near the water, near the food, near the trade routes. Those are exactly the areas that are sitting under hundreds of feet of water right now. The civilizations that we know about, Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley, all emerged around 3000 to 4000 BC, well after the sea level rise was essentially complete. They emerged on the high ground that survived the flooding, but the civilizations that existed on the coastal plains during the Ice Age, the ones closest to the resources that support the largest populations, if any of them reached a level of sophistication that leaves a lasting mark, their mark is underwater. We found submerged structures off the coast of Japan at Yonaguni. These are stone terrace formations at 80 feet deep that some researchers argue are architectural rather than natural. Off the coast of India in the Gulf of Kambat, sonar surveys found what appeared to be a grid of structures at 120 feet depth. The Indian government in 2002 announced that a 9,500-year-old city had been found, though the interpretation of the sonar data remains contested. Off the coast of Cuba, underwater sonar in 2001 identified large, smooth stone blocks arranged in what appeared to be a regular urban pattern at depths of around 2,000 feet. The researchers that found them, Paulina Zalitsky and Paul Weisenweg, said the formation showed very high regularity and symmetry, inconsistent with natural geological processes. All three of those remain unsolved. The depths of the sea make investigation expensive, time-consuming, and politically complicated. The Cuban site has never been properly excavated. The Yonaguni formations are still open for debate, and the Gulf of Kambat materials brought up by dredging included what appeared to be worked stone organic material that carbon dated to about 9,500 years ago. But follow-up investigation has been limited. What the ocean floor contains in terms of human history is almost entirely unexplored. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we do of our own ocean floor. But building something underwater is already something that we do. The process of building from below up is sound engineering. You drill into the bedrock of the ocean floor, excavate upward, and use the surrounding rock as your structural wall rather than fighting with the water pressure. The channel tunnel was built from both ends meeting in the middle under the English Channel. The U.S. Navy operated Sea Lab, a series of research habitats on the ocean floor in the 1960s. The Aquarius Reef Base has operated at 60 feet of depth off the Florida Keys for decades. Shimizu Corporation has fully engineered plans for an underwater city at the depths of 15,000 to 4,000 meters. The technology does exist, but the cost is the barrier. But for a civilization that had developed over thousands of years on continental shelves before those shelves flooded, one that had knowledge that the flood was coming or that had survived it and needed somewhere to go, the ocean floor is the logical destination, protected from whatever was happening on the surface, below the weather, and out of reach of everything else. In 1965, a Navy chief scientist named John P. Craven received a classified briefing on something called Project Sand Dollar, described as an itemized inventory of objects on the sea floor of national security interest, spanning the Atlantic and other ocean regions. Objects that predated any Navy capability to retrieve them, and Craven wrote about this in his memoirs. He subsequently oversaw the creation of the Deep Submergence Rescue Vehicle program, which he said was used for numerous operations beyond its official rescue mandate. Researcher Richard Dolan compiled nearly 700 USO cases and mapped them globally. And those clusters tell a specific story. The Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest point in the Atlantic at nearly 28,000 feet, has been generating consistent reports from military and civilian sources since the early 1960s. The Southern California coast near Catalina Island and the Channel Islands is another consistent cluster, with anomalies reported by commercial pilots, Coast Guard personnel, and private vessels. The Bermuda Triangle sits over some of the deepest water in the Atlantic, and deep trenches in the Pacific near Japan show the same pattern. The 2013 Aguadilla incident is the most technically compelling recent case. A U.S. Customs Border Protection aircraft captured thermal imaging footage of an object near Puerto Rico that entered the water, submerged, and re-emerged without slowing down at all. A team of scientists who analyzed the footage concluded that the object was displaying performance characteristics outside of any known human technology. In 2024, an admiral named Tim Gallaudet, former oceanographer and Navy commander, published a 29-page report for the Sol Foundation, a think tank focused on UAP research, stating that unidentified objects with unexplainable characteristics are entering the U.S. water space and that the Department of Defense is not sharing all of it. He testified before the House Oversight Committee in November of 2024 and called transmedium USOs a national security priority. Congressman Tim Burchett described being briefed by an active-duty admiral about objects the size of a football field moving at hundreds of miles an hour underwater. In our capabilities, he said, I don't think we have anything that goes over 40 miles an hour. These are reports of objects moving around in water in ways that we can't replicate in the same areas that were inhabited coastal land 12,000 years ago. The USO hotspots, the Puerto Rico Trench, Southern California, the deep Atlantic, sit in regions that were shallow coastal seas and inhabited continental shelves during the Ice Age. The Puerto Rico area was coastal plain where the sea level was 400 feet lower. The Southern California continental shelf extended miles further into what is now just open ocean. These weren't remote, open, deep-water ocean areas to the people who lived there 12,000 years ago. This was home. Whatever's moving underwater at those speeds and those locations at those depths may not be from somewhere else. It may have been here the whole time and gone down when the water came up. There's several things that make me think that most of these sightings, if not all of them, are from something that's native to this planet. The ocean has been rising for 12,000 years, and all we seem to pay attention to is what's on the surface. We have better maps of Mars than we do of our own ocean floor. Most of our human prehistory is down there, and things are moving at depths at speeds that no known technology can replicate. The Navy's been cataloging objects of national security interest on the ocean floor since at least 1965. And the continental shelves where those objects sit were inhabited land not long ago in geological terms. 12,000 years ago is really nothing. In the span of Earth's history, it's just like this morning. There could have been a civilization that developed on those continental shelves before the flooding and went underground when the water came up. We discussed the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis in a previous video, and I'll link that one at the end of this one in case you haven't seen it yet. If this is feasible, what do you think that they've been doing down there for 12,000 years? And if there is someone or something down there, what do you think that they think about us here on the surface? This would be an extremely mature civilization that has most likely found a way to establish peace by now. Are these the culprits for all of our UAP sightings? Can an established underground civilization that's been here forever be the culprit of everything that we're seeing on the surface with all these sightings and anomalies and everything else? Just like I mentioned in the crypto-terrestrial video, if they had time to continuously develop technology, they would have developed something that works in air and sea, because that's the necessity for them. And lastly, I know they just released another batch of UFO files, but I haven't been covering a lot of that stuff because frankly I think it's useless. A bunch of blurry, distorted images and videos. We all know that the government has better images that they're not sharing. We have the capability to take a picture of a license plate from outer space. I know they say they're blurring the images and distorting them so they don't display or give away their sensor technology to the adversaries, but showing off that they have sensors in the first place is something. Do they really think our adversaries believe the images that we take look like an Etch-a-Sketch? I think this is an interesting track. There's obviously evidence of civilizations that existed on these sunken coastlines that we have no record of because our human prehistory is all submerged. I mean, could they have built some kind of underground bunker below the sea? It's possible because we can do it today. And we can't assume that they didn't have any technology or knowledge to be able to do it back then because we just don't know. As always, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for watching. I'm hoping to next week get down to Cahokia Mounds to do some shooting there and just to get some documenting done. I'm really interested in that place and it's not too far from home. So I think I'm going to take a trek down there at some point next week and see what it's all about. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, like, and leave that comment. It really helps the channel out. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.